1991 to 2024, the government has been extending the ODP and revising the ODP, but we have not seen a CDP. In no city of Goa, we have seen a CDP. And this is the scenario we're in today, where there is no study, no estimation, no justification, but everything is being done if there is a need to grow faster under ODP provision and exploiting the ODP's lack of requirement of study to quickly allow for higher development, which I think is very suspicious and possibly maybe malified.
नमस्कार गोंयकारां, आयज आमचो विशय जावन आसा गोवा लँड यूज प्लॅनिंग. जायत्या गोंयकारांक खबर आसा की आयज आमचें अनप्लॅन डेव्हलपमेंट जावन वयता थंय प्रॉब्लमां चालू आसा. पूण आमचे जे गोंयचे पुर्वज आसलेले शेंकड्यांनी शिमऱ्यांनी वर्सां पयले, इवन दे हॅड प्लॅनिंग, दे हॅड ग्रेजिंग लँड एंड दॅट सॉर्ट ऑफ थिंग्स. आमच्या जाणटेल्यांनी तांकां तितलें शिकोवप आसप ना, आनी आयज आमकां शिकोवप आसुनूय आमी आमच्या नेणारपणाक वा आमचे आशेक लागून आमचे गोंयचे फुडले पिळगेक त्रासांत घालूंक सोदतात काय. आमी पयलीं समजून घेवपाक जाय बाबा, प्लॅनिंग मनशाक रावपाक पयशेच गरजेचे न्हय. वी नीड टू थिंक ऑफ क्वॉलिटी ऑफ लायफ. आमकां बाबा सुशेग आसा वा म्हाका पयशे करूंक जाय म्हूण दुसऱ्या नेबराचें घेवन पडप ना. आनी हें प्लॅनिंग इज व्हेरी इम्पॉर्टंट. आमचो बाब ताहीर, ताका भरपूर नॉलेज आसा आनी एक्सपिरियन्सूय आसा. वाचून दाखयता. Tahir is licensed architect and urban planner. He currently pursuing PhD in the University of California, Berkeley. Tahir's interests are social work, planning and public policy. Tahir taka hanga goinche zaite experience. He is a convener of Charles Correa Foundation, Panjim. He also a planner with the city of Detroit, Michigan, formulating regulations and permits. So आयज आमी ताहिराकडच्यान ताजें जें एक्सपिरियन्स आसा तें आमच्या गोंयकारां मुखार दवरूंक सोदतात, सो दॅट आमची फुडली पिळगी वा गोंयची कम्युनिटी तांकां बरे भाशेन फुडार मेळचें चिंतून. आनी ताहीर इज ऑल्सो कन्सर्न अबाउट द वे थिंग्स आर हॅपनिंग इन गोवा, आनी ताका लागून तो आज आमचे मदें आसा. सो ताहीर, अनेक फावटी वेलकम. सो एक पयलो प्रश्न तुजे लागीं. तुवें पयलां आसतलें, नाव सी द डिफरन्स इन US and Goa, the way the planning is going. What is the general view like?
I mean, it's interesting in a way. Karan, actually, a lot of the planning that we do in Goa comes out of the Model Town Planning Act of India, which was drafted by US planners.
Yes.
And in Delhi. And that act was brought to Goa by Edgar Ribeiro, a very senior Goan who worked with first Bhausaheb Bandodkar's government and then later Pratap Singh Rane's government to draft the Goa Town and Country Planning Act 1974. So there is quite a lot of overlap between US planning and India planning. However, the planning in Goa particularly represented for a long time US planning in the 60s and 70s until I would say 2017, when there were major changes to how planning law was, how the Goa Town and Country Planning Act was made in Goa, and which has turned our planning process in recent years on a whole different tangent. But even within a law that aligns very similarly to how planning is done in the UK and the US, there has been administrative and government actions in Goa in the past, most notably the regional plans and ODPs, that have again deviated from how, even though the framework's the same, the action has changed. And the whole thing is very interesting, but also poses a lot of lessons for what we should not be doing today if we look even at the recent past of Goa, last 10-15 वर्सां.
सो तुमी आयकलां, आमचें जेन्ना 1961 लिबरेशन म्हणटात तशें जाल्लें, तेन्ना वी स्टार्टेड नायसली. सडनली इन बिटवीन वी मिस द रोड. हें आतां आमच्या नेणारपणाक लागून जालां वा पयशांचे आशेक लागून जालां, हें आमी चिंतून घेवपाची गरज आसा. सो ताहीर बाब, फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन काय विचारपाक, वॉट इज लँड यूज प्लॅनिंग?
Okay, so आमी जेन्ना प्लॅनिंग म्हणटा, we generally talk about a whole lot of things. But how I would define planning is formulating a goal for the future. You can think of, let's use other examples. What is financial planning? You save money today so that in retirement you have money and you can survive. What is family planning? You take a decision on the size of your family today so that in the future there are adequate resources to support your children's upbringing, growth, college fees, etc. Correct? So the same way when we talk about land use planning, according to me, it is a conservation first approach. You look at the current land, you look at the need for new developments and new land, and you judiciously, very carefully, Munun, release up certain amounts of land so that Fudle Pilge have land that they can utilize in the future, right? So it is, if you think about planning and then within that you think about land use planning, it makes very logical sense.
ओके, आतां बाब ताहिरान बरे भाशेन आमकां एक्सप्लेन केलां की जें आमचें सो कॉल्ड डेव्हलपमेंट आसा, हाव वी शूड बॅलन्स विथ कन्जर्वेशन ऑल्सो सो दॅट आवर फ्युचर जनरेशन हॅज बेटर लायफ. ताहीर, थँक्यू. दुसरो क्वेश्चन, व्हॉट मेक्स इट सेन्सिटीव एंड इम्पॉर्टंट फॉर गोवा?
Okay, actually, to me, literature poipak and history of planning and in India, Goa is actually the most unique state of the country. We are the first state in India in 1986 wherein every one of our villages has got a land use policy and a plan. Each and every one. This was done in 1986 in a plan called Regional Plan for Goa 2001. I mean 2001 munta because the estimate for population growth and infrastructure requirement was calculated up until 2001. Because of that, we became, after Delhi, which is not a full state, the second state in India to be completely covered by planning. And until today, we remain one of only 3 states in the country that are completely covered by planning. Until today, despite states like Maharashtra, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu doing very well, Kerala as well, all of them have faced some hurdles in taking land use to rural areas. पण आमचो गोंयान अशें जायना. We have been able to at least get all of our villages on paper within a certain land use planning system. Now, what happens within the system in Goa is again very different to other parts of the country. But if you look at what other people are studying, are writing about, when they write about India planning, you will see that it is very restricted to metro cities. There are a lot of people who have written a lot about Chennai, Bangalore, Mumbai, Delhi, Calcutta, and when people, it's very city based. But we know that cities do not exist in isolation. We are sitting in Santa Cruz. Santa Cruz, you cannot divide or separate Panjim from Santa Cruz. Santa Cruz, makadista 1/3 of the people here work in or around Panjim in these areas, right? It's the region that is very important. And Goa itle lahana, the whole of Goa could be considered as one region. So this idea of regional planning is tried and tested best in Goa, where other states of the country are now starting to adopt regional plans. For example, Mumbai in the 2010s adopted its first regional plan for Bombay and the surrounding region. We had this since 1986. That way, Goa is a great case study of how urban and rural, city and village, though we Bangladar will work together. And theoretically, academically, if you read the law line by line, this is incredibly progressive for India. But this is again where I go back to a point initially where I spoke about that we have a great, my friend and colleague Solano de Silva likes to say that there is a promise of planning and Goa is the place in India that the promise of planning is the strongest. But then that promise need not be upheld by the one who gives it to us. And that unfortunately is what I fear is happening right now in us.
ताहिरान आतां जायते आमकां एक्सप्लेन केलें. तातूंतलो एक पॉयंट हांव रिपीट करता. तो सांगता की गोवा इज नॉट लायक बॉम्बे or Calcutta. We have stunning coastline, rich biodiversity and cultural heritage. हाका लागून it is very crucial that we balance our development and conservation. So thank you.
And if I can add to that, what Jack says also makes a very interesting point, because in Goa, our cities are not detached from the villages. Correct? Because our cities also have biodiversity and our villages also have good connection through road, through culture, people are educated. It's not like a lot of the other country. So like this integrated system wherein heritage and environment flows through the whole thing is very unique.
अनेक उडगास केलो म्हाका ताहिरान. तो सांगून सोदता ते प्रमाणे if Goans are thoughtful and committed, we can still make a difference. ते आमचे गोंयकारांचेर आसा. थँक्यू ताई. आतां तिसरो क्वेश्चन. What is regional plan and outline development plan?
Okay, so let's first talk about regional plan. Regional plan is basically a broad brush plan. कारण आम्ही सगळे cover आहा, cities have a certain characteristic. Right? Mostly commercial, higher rise structures, more of business, more of that type of a city living. And rural has its own thing, largely green, more individualistic, maybe living, not living in apartments, living in houses. There is this everybody having a plot of land or close to the plot of land. There's an agrarian connection to the rural. So you cannot imagine rural without khetio nazaler orchard. Even if you are not a landowner or not a tenant, there is this structure, this geography, this urban form, rural form that are clearly distinct from one another. But as I spoke about earlier, there's a need to integrate them because people move across urban and rural. And there we bring what's called a regional plan. And the regional plan sets a broad agenda for the growth of both the cities and the villages in the state for a long horizon period, usually around 20 varas is normal. Delhi Master Plan, which is a regional plan, 20 years. Goa is 20 years. Mumbai, I think, is 30 years. But this is the logic behind the regional plan. Now, regional plan pramane, because it's looking at both city and village, it is also rather simplistic. You don't usually see a very detailed marking. Kase utilities zata, exactly what is the width of the road on the ground versus the proposed road widening, is not necessary to show in the regional plan. Mainly in the regional plan, you show three types of what we'll call for now zone. You show a settlement zone. Tatutlian, you can build residential, you can build small commercials, you can build small institute also, school, church, we club all of that together into what we call a settlement zone. And in Magir, we do various types of agriculture zones. Khetio, orchard, khazan land. We do settlements, we do different types of agriculture, and then we do what's called touch me not zones. Touch me not zones, they're protected because they have great environmental or historical significance. There should be under no consideration any sort of development. Forest jaha, World Heritage Site, Old Goa, all of these things that are protected under various acts, CRZ regulation apply, all of these are the touch me not zone. The regional plan, if you look at regional plans in other Indian states, stops there. It shows you settlement, it shows you several types of agricultures, and it shows you a touch me not. Goa regional plan is not so any detail. We have shown in some villages road widening, we have shown in some areas we've done some marking of commercial zones. And so complicated. But there is this idea generally, if you look at the regional plan, of three main zones. And everything falls within those three main. Now, the idea of the ODP comes up first in 1960 again in Delhi with an idea that Delhi has the regional plan, they have settlement areas, they have certain areas, but there are parts of Delhi that are growing very fast. So again, Albert Meyer, an American planner, was called to help them streamline the development in Delhi and organize the quickly growing areas. So Albert Meyer created what's called the Interim Development Plan, IDP, which the logic of the first IDP, in Goa we call it ODP, is to lock down the fast growing areas quickly so that, and also lock down the eco-sensitive areas, so that if a part like a city normally, in Goa's case, we can look at Ponje Margao, the city is growing faster than the villages around it. So quickly bring an ODP, mark out all the touch me not zones, out any other eco-sensitive zones, find areas like the main core part of the city where you can accommodate little higher heights and allow the building there, so that before you do more studies on infrastructure, studies on services, studies on all of these things, you have at least said, okay, if you want to, there is demand to build, you build here only. You don't build elsewhere. The Goa Town Planning Act sets a 5-year time frame for an ODP to be converted into what's called a comprehensive development plan. But Pratap Singh Rane brought an amendment to the Goa Town Planning Act, maka exactly date khabar na, to say that if the government cannot meet this 5-year deadline, the cabinet may or the government may, through official gazette notification, extend the duration of the ODP indefinitely. It is under this provision that our cities till today do not have what's called a comprehensive plan. Comprehensive development plan, yani CD, is like an ODP but more detailed. Inside a CDP, first of all, there has to be a report. That report has to have population projections, meaning amcho share or fast growing area population kashe vadta. That needs to identify key projects. What are the main projects that are coming up, private and government, in the city in the next 10 years, 15 years, 20 years horizon period for the plan? Where will they be mapped? And it also needs to justify the areas that are fast growing by giving some reasons as to this will generate this many jobs, this will lead to this much, this is the environmental impact, but the economic impact is more than that. Hey, sagle traffic studies been zai patta. But this indicates that the government has to do some work to prepare comprehensive plan. It does not have to do a lot of work for outline development plan. Outline development plan was supposed to be a sketch, quickly lock down some areas, allow other areas to grow. Until the time that we can start doing studies, 5 years is a lot of time for a government or a PDA or a department to do some studies, correct? To prepare the comprehensive plan. Till date, the first ODP came into Goa, I think in the late 1980s, maybe 1991. I'm not, again, dates but from then to now, I can give you Panjim first ODP 1991. 1991 to 2024, the government has been extending the ODP and revising the ODP, but we have not seen a CD. In no city of Goa, we have seen a CDP. Azon Paranta, they are just saying that this area is fast growing, we need to do an ODP. Oh, 5 years expires, indefinite extension of ODP until government will prepare a CDP. And this is the scenario we're in today, where there is no study, no estimation, no justification, but everything is being done if there is a need to grow faster under ODP provision and exploiting the ODP's lack of requirement of study to quickly allow for higher development, which I think is very suspicious and possibly maybe malafide.